Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you all. It's September 30th, 2017. So this is the last briefing from the LaRouche movement here in Texas for this year. And we're going to have a wonderful presentation by Michael Carr, who's going to walk us through what we all need to understand going into the new year, which is a future-oriented credit policy to develop our nation and the world. That's the challenge before us. But I want to take a few minutes first, just quickly sweep through what our movement has accomplished this year, and intersected what is really a spectacular change and potential change in the whole direction of human history. And so if we look back to January of this year, of course, people were still shaking from this upset that occurred in the election, with the election of President Trump. A total upset where all the pundits, all the money interests, all the big money had bet on Hillary Clinton, of course. But people took a chance. People took a chance on voting for this president. But as LaRouche says, it was a reflection of a much broader global process that we also had seen prior to that in Brexit vote in England, in Italy, where people voted against a constitutional change, which would have allow their own personal savings to be looted in what was called a bail-in. So there's been an overall broad sense of revolt for what was supposed to be the end of history, the gospel that came in with the fall of the Berlin Wall and what the Bush back then called the New World Order, the first Iraq War, the beginning of a regime change wars, where the U.S. would have unchallenged dominance in the world, but as we've said, it was the U.S. as a dumb giant on a British leash, forcing a policy of global empire. And the world and the nation that President Trump inherited as president was largely shaped by the activities of this movement spread over decades. Let's not forget that when the Berlin Wall did come down, LaRouche was already in prison, a political prisoner. And yet while he was in prison, he was inducted as a fellow in the Russian Academy of Sciences based on his economic writings, right, where the intellectuals in Russia began to look at LaRouche's ideas as a way of challenging shock therapy. Mrs. LaRouche went to bat heroically to free her husband from prison, but played a unique and seminal role in bringing LaRouche's economic ideas to China. And we can absolutely say the miraculous transformation that happened in China over the past several decades. The Chinese government itself credits Mrs. LaRouche's central role in that by inviting her to speak at a forum of the Belt and Road Summit that happened in May. But let's not forget that just prior to that, President Trump had his first meeting with Xi Jinping, President Xi Jinping of China, in Mar-a-Lago, Florida in April. And so, you had this seed created that, as inevitably happened, as we said it would, that the arrogant power of Western finance would be proven, that it would create the basis for their own destruction. Our movement helped bring into existence a new combination of forces in the world that carry civilization forward, radiating around what's now called the New Silk Road, or the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, I'll say that the oligarchy obviously did not want this new combination to come into existence, and their attacks on President Trump's ability to act in an independent way was initiated through a extra-legal attack coordinated by this fellow here, Robert Mueller. And I'm happy to say our movement was able to put dossier on Robert Mueller into its second printing recently, now gone out to every member of the U.S. Congress. In the headlines you're reading about Devin Nunes and Gowdy and the attacks on the higher-ups in the Department of Justice. We have to take a certain degree of credit that we opened up the floodgates on all of these with this dossier, which if you haven't read it, get it online, you can order it from us. But I also want to say that 1 month from today is December 30th, well, January 30th was President Trump's State of the Union address. And that address has not yet been written, I can tell you. It's going to be written by what we do between now and the 30th. So that's why it's a real victory for our movement that despite all the difficulties involved, we have rushed into print a second document, which everyone must access and study again, because what's in this document in terms of the, it's called LaRouche's 4 Laws, the Physical Economic Principles for the Recovery of the United States, America's Future on the New Silk Road. We have to make the agenda put forward in this document brought in as U.S. policy officially with President Trump's State of the Union address 1 month from now. So, but that's something to look forward to in the new year. We want to just sit around and pop the champagne and not have a mission. So we invite you all to be part of this. I will tell you, you will find out that this will have something, a very special role to play in this process, which we'll talk about at the meeting. But in terms of the essence of what this credit policy looks like, how it can happen, and how it is actually a fulfillment of America's historic mission inherited from our founding fathers and future generations, that's what Mr. Carr is going to speak to us about today. Thank you, Mike.
Go far up the projector. I'll get to you like that. So mostly I'm going to be showing slides, and I'm going to try to give you a more physical idea of LaRouche's concept of 4 laws, especially the part that has to do with credit and the part that has to do with the immediate future. I mean, one of the things, we published this, and people have this idea, well, this New Silk Road, all this stuff is over at the other side of the world. It's not really going to affect us. We're going to Europe. You have to get the idea that there are immediate things which are about to happen. We got a few little technical glitches. Okay, so yeah, so no. All right, sorry, we have a few technical glitches. We have power outage, and I'm on the other end of the equipment. Yeah. So anyway, so we're going to be talking about the 4 laws, how they're going to unleash astounding creativity to finish off the British Empire from here inside the United States. We have had this situation which, for most of the past century, there hasn't been a credit policy in the United States. Credit policy during World War II, there was a little bit of the credit policy in World War I. There was some of that during the period in the middle 1950s, with the beginning of the real drive around the Cold War and into about 1967. But most of that 100 years did not have a credit policy. So we're going to be talking here about the credit system versus the material system, and we're going to be talking about power. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. And so it's we're going to go down one alley and then come back to the main route, and go down another alley, come back to the main route. But I hope that by the end of it, you'll get a better sense of physical economy than you would otherwise have. We're going to be talking specifically about a few examples of industrialists here: Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, George Westinghouse, Tesla, our good friend Lyndon LaRouche, Elon Musk of all people. We'll find out. Okay, so this is the, we used to give slideshows around 1982 when we were organizing to give the backing for what became the Strategic Defense Initiative policy. We used to give slideshows in various clubs and venues. And this is an important aspect of that slideshow, because what it demonstrates is the relationship between the frequency of the vibrating energy and where it is in terms of, the microwaves, infrared. They operate on the molecular level, on the external part of the nucleus of the external part of the relationship between atoms in molecules. And you get further down, we get ultraviolet, atomic, when you get closer down to the actual internal part of the nucleus, then you get gamma rays and X-rays. Anyway, and over time, man has developed increasing mastery of these areas of the electromagnetic spectrum. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the electricity. But all of this is, this is the reason that we don't have to worry about. People will tell you, well, we have all these robots and we have all these automation, we have all these automated trucks and automated this. What are we going to do with all the people? Well, we've got unlimited amount of work. You don't have to worry about that as long as you have a credit policy. Okay. So here we got Thomas Edison here, and of course everybody knows that he built the workable electric light bulb, thought to help mankind, but you probably didn't know that he was actually set to this task by a group of industrialists operating out of Philadelphia. Our friend Tony Chaikin has documented with the deliberate intention to electrify industry and the whole country. One of the later things he was working on was how to electrify transportation. Here he is. He's got an electric car that's put up there, and there's a bunch of this lead acid battery. And we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what can we do to get mobile electric power, because electric motors are great, but if you don't have the power to run the motor, then it doesn't work out. So we're going to come back to that in a minute. No, we didn't. It's only now that we're sort of on the road, not figuring it out. But here you have, in the 1920s, you started to see that steam engines, steam power started to be replaced by diesel electric locomotives. Now here in Houston, you have diesel electric buses. I mean, might have been on one or seen one. But the basic idea is you have a diesel, because the diesel engine is a fine piece of machinery, but the problem with diesel engines is that they have a narrow band of RPMs that they can be run, where they have very high power. So like a 18-wheeler has got on the order of 18 gears to go through to get up to 50 miles, 70 miles an hour. And so however, if you use a diesel generator to generate electricity, you power your propeller or your locomotive with electric motors, then you have full torque of all of your power is available, even though you are at 0 miles per hour. So anyway, so that was kind of an intermediate step, and that's the area that you've been at recently. Now we're going back. Here's another guy you recognize, Henry Ford. Now, one of the things that he tried to do is he grew up on a farm and he didn't like it. He didn't like being on the farm. He didn't like farm work. And he was determined that he was going to try to figure out some way to bring power to farmers. So when he developed the Model T wasn't just a car the way you have a car today. The Model T was something that had power takeoff. You could run saws on, you could run all kinds of equipment off of. He developed, shortly after that, the Fordson tractor, now it's Ford tractor. But prior to that, steam, you never saw a steam thrashing machine. It could barely move. It could move, but it was, a huge undertaking for a steam thrashing machine to move through a field. One of the other things about him is he initiated scientific studies of materials because he found that European cars had some steel that was better than his steel. So we had scientific studies done, and he actually took apart all his cars and he tried to figure out what was the best steel that could be used in each part. And he tried to always maximize the output per weight. So his cars were always designed to be very lightweight, but very strong and very durable. And in his case, Thomas Edison lost control very early on when he was in conflict over whether the electrical power system would be DC or whether it would be alternating current. And so he was having a tough time. He had to sell some of his stock, and he had to issue more stock from his company. And that's when J.P. Morgan took him over. And Henry Ford was able to stave off the Wall Street interest until the time that he was too old to really continue running the show. And then in his will, he set up the Ford Foundation. You know that the Ford Foundation has done all kinds of things that he wouldn't have agreed with. I should say also that he also had some weird ideas. And all these people we're talking about that are not necessarily all perfect. They have all perfect ideas. But he understood a lot about industrialization and the perfection of productive activity. So here I've just got a picture from the Model T assembly line without the people. This is in motion. This is where the body is coming in. Chassis down here, and the body is coming in from the left side there, about to be mounted. This is a more modern. This is what's pretty much typical for a production line these days. These are German KUKA robots on a production line. But not so many people. And this is something new. This is GE's advanced turboprop, and it's built using 3D printing, sometimes known as additive manufacturing. It's something new. And in this particular engine, which is going to be put on a plane next year, 855 parts have been replaced by 12 parts of the 3D printing machine. Here's an example of a very large one. Cincinnati. So no, this make whatever you want to make, but I mean, the machine tools you usually think about are drill presses. Take a big chunk of metal, drill away, or like a sculptor, you have a block of marble, and you chip away, and you get to the inner beauty, or whatever they call it. You chip away, you remove all of that. Well, this is the opposite. You start with nothing, and build it up, sort of like a Play-Doh. But anyway, each has advantages, but you don't need high tensile strength. For many purposes, this is the best way to build something. So here's another thing which just happened. We're talking about the immediate future. Once you get the credit system going, how all these new areas can be taken off. And part of my problem is everything that's new, it's very difficult to get a picture. So I couldn't get a picture that I could use on the internet of the machinery we're talking about here. But this company, Software Automation, which is made by some people from Georgia Tech, they had a contract from DARPA to develop robotic machinery to do sewing, to handle very delicate tasks with cloth. And unlike, the robots you just saw for welding automobile chassis and things like that. So anyway, so they developed this technology, and this past year, a Chinese company signed a contract to build an automated shirt factory in Arkansas. It's kind of shocking because all of everything we wear is made in China or Bangladesh or somewhere else. But now there are factories for production of this here. Now we're going on to a third industrialist, George Westinghouse. Probably you don't know about him. You've probably never heard of him. Have you heard the name Westinghouse? Okay, well, this guy is the guy who made railroads safe. Before he developed the air brake system, as many as 5,000 brakemen they were up on top of the car, having hand crank wheels. They'd have to rapidly turn, and then they have to jump from one car to the next car, go down the whole line of rail cars, and turn the brakes on. You can imagine how long it would take. You can imagine how dangerous it was doing all those kinds of things. So as many as 5,000 people would be killed or injured in a year. Not to mention what happened with the train hitting something else. So anyway, so he invented that, and he really, over his lifetime, he like Edison, he had like a patent every 1.5 months average. Like that. So he worked with Nikola Tesla, who was previously worked with Edison, and he developed the alternating current system for transmission and everything that went with alternating current, which is different from direct current with Edison. So anyway, so he built the first big power plant at Niagara Falls, electrified pretty much everything. He created the natural gas industry by drilling a well in front of his house, and then the gas turbine industry. He never had a strike from any of his employees, and that's another thing about Henry Ford. Henry Ford was famous because he doubled everybody's wages. Because the problem with the assembly line was it was good at producing stuff, but it was boring as hell. If you were just doing things over and over and over again, I mean, it would drive people nuts. And so he had a lot of turnover. But he found that if you actually doubled the wages of employees, you would have to spend less money on training, and it worked out a lot better. Well, anyway, he was known for going down into the factories and actually helping the workers build things. And but he was also taken over by Wall Street. That's the point about the monetary system. Monetary system is based on controlling people and things. So the monetary, they will come in, they'll loan you money, and the minute that you have a problem with your income not meeting your necessary outgo, that's when you lose control. And that's what happened to him. And this is a theme that you're going to see throughout this whole. Now I want to show you a little clip here. This is 1905. This is through this factory that's building generators. And I am going to shift this camera here so that people. No, I said Nikola Tesla worked with Westinghouse. Westinghouse had a deal with Tesla. That's how. So I'm turning this up here. Yeah, he was not well treated by north. Okay, so this is a silent movie, 1905, 1904, 1 year after, actually 2 months after Wright brothers first flight. So I want you to notice how many people there are shot from overhead train. This is Westinghouse. You'll see that the generators where you see a lot of people. And that's one of the most interesting things about it. No, they're making generators for electrical generating plants, probably. Electrical motors. I don't know exactly. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people wearing suits walking around. A whole bunch of people. And they're not good. All kinds of people. It's just about a minute long. I found it and I wanted to show it to you guys. 1904. Oh. This is just outside Pittsburgh. Also, he built housing for his people. They were nice houses. They weren't just like build and the workers could buy them. Well, I don't know if these buildings are still there or not, but all throughout the area from New York across to St. Louis, there are lots and lots of buildings. So that's it. Yeah, so that's still. All right, that's a good thing. All right, so then of course you know this guy, LaRouche. He identified the enemy. He led the resistance to the destruction of our country. Basically, the United States has been under continuous attack just about my whole life. Much longer than that, also. So, and he saw the differences between the non-credit system and the credit system. He basically raised the American system ideas to the highest level of understanding. And he was jailed. Actually, you know about that. And he was the guy who designed the World Land Bridge, designed the plans for colonized space. And he was put in prison. So now here we come to this. Everybody's seen this guy somewhere, Elon Musk, right? Okay, well, he specifically came to the United States because the United States was a place that did revolutionary things. South Africa, and he like Edison and Ford and Westinghouse, they put everything they had into their project. They weren't piling up money to go live on an island. This is one of the reasons that I have him up here. Is that they asked him, well, when you sold your PayPal interest and you had millions of dollars, why didn't you go buy an island to retire? He said, well, I don't think that the future should be sad. Even though there's plenty of things that I disagree with him about, nonetheless, thing that you have to grant him is that he did something that most people thought was impossible, which was he built a car, one across the street here. I see them all over the place. I've seen as many as 4 within 20 minutes walking through the neighborhood here. we built a car, Model S, which people thought was the best car that you could buy, regardless of price, and it's an electric car. And he created a situation in which, people are saying, well, Tesla's not making any money because they're putting all their money back into their machinery and their production, expanding their production. So he's not making any money, and so the vultures are hovering over him. They're saying, well, no, if we hold out, we can take over the company. That's a good Ford, like the Westinghouse. That's a good coverage to try to do that. So here's what Henry Ford said about that. And once again, everything that Henry Ford said was not perfect. And he thought a lot of stupid things about these things. But he understood this question very clearly. He said, the true industrial idea is not to make money. The industrial idea is to express a serviceable idea, to duplicate a useful idea by as many thousands as there are people who need it. To produce, to get a system that will reduce production to a fine art. To put production on such a basis as will provide means for expansion and the building of still more shops, production of still more thousands of things. That is the real industrial idea. The negation of the industrial idea is the effort to make a profit out of speculation instead of out of work. There are short-sighted men who cannot see that business is bigger than any one man's interest. Business is a process of give and take, live and let live. It is cooperation among many forces and interests. Whenever you find a man who believes that business is a river whose beneficial flow ought to stop as soon as it reaches him, you find a man who thinks business alive by stopping its circulation. He would produce wealth by the stopping of the production of wealth. That's what we are surrounded by in the world right now. Anybody who has an idea, anybody who's trying to do something, the minute they try to do something, somebody's going to try to squash it. And this has been going on over and over again, but it's about to change. So anyway, I put Elon Musk up here because he did something that most people, including myself, didn't really think was possible. He created a situation in which GM totally changed their strategy. On October the 3rd, General announced that they are going to produce nothing but electric cars and trucks produced are running on fuel cells. And what are you trying to do?
I'm sorry, not working on the like he's gonna put it on you.
Yeah, okay, we can do that, right. Okay, all right. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. We have technical difficulty. Can you see that? Hopefully we'll. I'm more interested in them seeing the. Right, that's what. Okay. All right, so anyway, whatever the problem is. And so, and by 2023, they're going to have at least 20 different electric cars. Now, currently in the United States, the #1 selling car is electric car. Now, Nissan says that they're about to start selling autonomous cars starting in 2020. That's only 10 years off. So there are always, guys yourself, you say, I want to go to the opera, or I want to go to the park, and put in your dress and then drive. You don't even have to look forward. You can read or you can do it. Well, they haven't really been, they haven't had, this is a prototype. They have some, we have cruise control. All right, well, they have, for example, the Tesla's like a car that I was there. They have currently capabilities and automatically brake. They'll do certain things, but we still have to do our response. But these are different. These are something different. Then, beyond that, you have the situation in which you can have network cars, where the cars actually talk to each other. You might not even have signals because the cars are all talking to each other, and they're yeah, the cars are in a conspiracy and they're working together. But anyway, but the point is that this is just a day and a half from today, 2018. We're only talking 2.5 when we get to this. So I'm telling you these things because I don't want you to think that everything's just going to continue going on the way it's been going on. Just, somebody might build a railroad, somebody might build a power plant, using power plant, gas plant. No, there's a whole bunch of things which are about to be unleashed. And I by no means have all of it. I'm just giving you what I happen to know about it. Run across. There may, this is just one thing that I happen to know about because I watched an interview with the vice president of the Nissan who was demonstrating this car, but I don't know what Toyota's up to on that, and Carr, I don't know what other companies are up to. I'm just telling you that this is something which is about to happen. So I want to review the principle of the things that I'm talking about here. A monetary system is designed to take control of what already exists, not to create anything new. That's sort of why we have this situation where, except for a few things, like the internet things that people thought they could do, manipulate the way you think, except for that, not very much has changed. The car that I drive is 20 years old. My wife's car is only 67 years old, but it's not that much different. And the car that I drive is 28 years old, but it's not much different than the car I drove when I was in high school. So anyway, yeah. So there's a whole array of things that's about to change. So I want to give you another quote here from Henry Ford, listening about the railway. Already, in the 1920s, the railroads had fallen apart in the United States. Not just it started falling apart; it's been looted forever. So here he says, our railway managers have been practically forced to borrow. Our railway managers have been practically forced to borrow since the very inception of the railway. They have not been creation. The guiding hand of the railway has been not the railroad man, but the banker. When railroad credit was high, more money was to be made out of floating bond issues and speculating in securities than out of service to the public. A very small fraction of the money earned by the railway was gone back into rehabilitated property. When by skilled management, the net revenue became large enough to pay a considerable dividend upon the stock, then that dividend was used first by the speculators on the inside and controlling the railroad fiscal policy, boom the stock, and unload their holdings. That is, to artificially create a bubble, sell their stuff, and start over again. And then to float a bond issue on the strength of the credit gained through the earnings. When the earnings dropped or were artificially depressed, then speculators bought back the stock and forced the United States another advance on them. This is going on over and over and over and over again in some years, because the railroads were built not just by private enterprise, but federal government, state government, local government, subsidies, land given, all kinds of things given. You have monetary systems, predatory systems, Wall Street systems. They come in and they figure out how they're going to get control of it and suck it dry as quickly as possible. Oh yeah. Radio bubbles. There's been tulip bubbles. There have been all kinds of bubbles. All kinds of bubbles. Now a credit system allows the future to pay for its creation by the utilization of all the manpower and resources currently available. In other words, what I was showing you at the beginning there's unlimited work to be done. Okay, so we have all this work that needs to be done, and we have all these people. Credit is the way that you connect. And what you produce will pay for itself into the future. The example that we always use is the Apollo project. Even the Wall Street econometrics people, the Wall Street people, they're not our friends. They have to admit that for every dollar that was put into the Apollo project, the country got at least $10 back. But that applies for all these areas. And we're going to be discussing a lot of different areas, and they're by no means everything that there is to be discussed. But anyway, in the credit system, anyone with a good idea can get the credit, research development, for concept of product. You don't have to be a billionaire. Maybe we have billionaires who can create the program for us. You know, Elon Musk, he's got his program, other people have his program, but that's not really, that's not the way it should be, and it doesn't work that way. No billionaire has enough billions to do the kinds of things that we're intending to do. Okay, now, so we're going to talk about a credit system. So here, this is city in China. Shenzhen, right. And this is what it looks like downtown. And they have, you know, everything is not perfect in China. We spent a lot of time talking about China, but everything is not perfect. You say that their plans to get the last 40 million people out of poverty, they're talking about getting them above $1 a day. It's not perfect. They don't have dryers. They don't have refrigerators and freezers the way we do. Every day, everybody's got to go buy their food. And they have a lot of pollution because they ran this rapid industrial thing. Well, whatever I say right now is they're moving too fast. Whatever I say about right now, by next year this time, it'll be totally different. So, because they have a credit system. That's what we're talking about. So this was October this year in Shanghai. They not only have smog problems up in Beijing there, and once again, this was just one of the free images I could use publicly. Better image. It's publicly usable. But they also have sandstorms. That's a big problem up in the north. But anyway, so here, this is an electric taxi, all their taxis, pretty much everything in Shenzhen is electric. And it's made by a company called BYD, Building Green. It also builds electric buses. They pretty much build the most electric vehicles in the world. Again, they're about to build an automobile factory in Quebec. With electric cars up there. They built a bus factory in California. And they've grew basically in 10 years and nothing. They were a battery company. They were happy. Credit, yeah, they have credit. They have the government. They have engineers. You have engineering, you have credit, and private capital group. To test things out. Now in China, they do have one thing that they kind of tend to, they don't do as much testing, and everything is so fast. They start producing things and they start usually selling them. But anyway, over time, they keep getting better and better, like anybody. So their cars, their equipment, do not have a good reputation, but their reputation is getting better and better and better. That particular company has a very high reputation. So here, this was just one announcement from the other day. China, the National Development and Reform Commission, country's top economic planner, has made 3-year targets: railways, shipping and maritime engineering, intelligent robots, smart cars, autonomous cars that we're talking about, modern agricultural machines, really trying to figure out how to get going. And that's why they're happy to have an Iowa governor, the American ambassador there. Advanced medicine, medical devices, new materials, smart manufacturing. And also, they just announced that at the same time that 37 countries are building the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor in France, at the same time that they intend to start building the first actual electricity plant in China. They have a competition with China where that was decided. Yeah, for fusion power. And they're also got plans for building space planes with combined cycle engines. We're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. But the thing is that here we are in the West, build something, bet your company. Okay, so Boeing decided to build this plane, the 787. They're not going to expect to make a profit for like 15 years into the project. So it's going to take them 10 years to design, build, testing, producing, and they're not going to get any payback for at least 15 years. Okay? And that's if they make a good bet. Like here, down below here, you have the A380, which is a beautiful piece of equipment, the world's biggest plane, the world's biggest passenger plane. But they're not selling very well. Airbus builds it, it's in trouble. Because it's got a different concept behind it. Okay? So the idea with the 787 is to fly directly where you want to go. You fly from Seattle to say Shenzhen or to Caracas. You fly directly city to city. Whereas this plane's built on the idea that you might fly here to New York and then take an A380 from New York over to Paris, and then from Paris to another plane go to secondary cities like Milan, something like that. Okay. So, over time it might end up paying off, but right now they're having trouble selling it. So, bigger than 747. What's that? A380, Airbus. European company, but there's also a plant in Alabama. Not building this model, but another. And a similar thing with the company that builds nuclear plants. You design a new nuclear plant, and you don't know if it will ever pay off. And you don't have any support. The government is basically operating against operating to help Wall Street. All right. So now we're going back to power. I told you we're going to be going all over. Can't really help. So this is your typical phone battery. This is ion battery. But it's about to become obsolete. So it's about to become obsolete for a number of reasons, but I just want to discuss with you briefly the difference between a battery and a capacitor. One of the things that is in the running to replace batteries are something called supercapacitors. So basically, in a battery, you have a separator between the cathode and the anode, and you have your ions going back and forth, depending on whether you're charging the battery up or you're discharging the battery. And the ions are moving slowly across either way, depending on which way you have either charging or discharging. They're moving across this separator. In the capacitor, you have a different idea. Basically, you are collecting a charge, by and large, So, like for example, you walk across the rug, you touch metal, after you walk across the rug, after it's in the house, you might get a little shock. That's what a capacitor is. Now, this is a model of Benjamin Franklin's electricity generator. This one is in Philadelphia. This one is in the way it works a little better. Up here, you have glass, you rub against the cloth. And up here, you can see there are pieces of metal. These pieces of metal are directing the charge over the ball. So, like charging that ball, and if you touch the ball, you just don't spark. So that's sort of the way a capacitor works, but if you can control the discharge rate of the capacitor is the replacement for a battery. So you have, like this company, Kilowatt Labs, they're in Manhattan. They say basically it's the same form factor, whether you're talking about a phone or your computer, your tablet, or a car. They can basically recharge you. You charge your battery to your computer or your phone in 30 seconds. You have a lifespan of about 40 years as opposed to a couple of years for battery. And, so that's a very interesting technology. But there's also some other companies that have other technologies coming out. An Israeli company called StoreDot, which says that it can make batteries for cars, run 200 miles, charge up in 5 minutes, and your phone can charge in 30 seconds. And another... no, that's a different contract. This plane would use similar equipment that makes lithium-ion batteries. So they say. You have to take all this with a grain of salt. But the point is that the lithium-ion batteries that we have is had less There's a relatively new electric automobile company that's started by Mr. Danish guy who worked for BMW, he worked for Tesla, and he's working with some scientists, and basically everybody in the world that's got anything to do with electronics, cars, and anything else, trying to figure out some battery stuff. Everybody's trying to, and they're really trying to figure it out right now. But anyway, this guy filed patent company for a solid-state battery. It doesn't have that fluid or cell in between the cathode and the anode. It's got 2.5 times the energy density and 1/3 the price of a lithium-ion battery, because it does not have to use cobalt. It's very expensive and comes from Democratic Republic of the Congo, way up the Congo River and all that. So it didn't use quite as much of that. And it could charge in 1 minute, 500 miles in 1 minute. I mean, the electric engines are always about electric cars need less maintenance. You know, they're way simpler. They have thousands less parts. The only problem has always been the battery. The picture I showed you with Edison, before Henry Ford, there were probably more electric cars than there were gasoline cars. Henry Ford figured out a way to make gasoline cars go cheap. That's what happened. So now we're going on. Here's some other things. Okay, so we've been talking about this for ages and ages also. Now, technology for reverse osmosis has gotten to the point that these things are going up all over the place, even in California, where they never build anything. They're allowed to build a plant. And in Israel, they built 4 of these plants, and they're producing a cubic meter of water for less than 40 cents. So now Israel went from being a really dry place, where everybody's going around trying to save water, to place where they're actually increasing the amount of water that the sharing Jordan. But it means that you have this kind of technology that you can have a peaceful settlement. So, here's another technology which is related but not the same. It's a very important technology. A big chunk of China is, as I told you, they have sandstorms, especially up in Beijing and areas in the north. And they have been, since the 1970s, they've been on a campaign, we call it the Great Dune Wall, a campaign to figure out how to get something to grow on the sand out there and stop the sand from going. If possible, make crops, but at least there's something to grow. And they, a team from the University of Galcon developed a substance which comes from plants. Within plant cell wall, develop a derivative of that, which is they treat the soil, will create a situation where the soil will hold enough moisture that plants, the plants that used to live in dry soil and actually grow. And they have a whole array of different kinds of technologies for using the water that's falling. I mean, everybody's got irrigation technology. We have technology that don't get places with very little rain, which they're not really trying to grow any particular crop, but they're trying to get something to grow to cover the land. You take a look here. This is called the Yellow River. You can see it's totally yellow. You see how much sand is pouring out into it, but it's also traveling through the Loess Plateau, which is known to be one of the most easily erodible places in the world. And, that water is the most sediment containing water in the world, but it's gone down slightly because of the and actually in China they have begun actually shrinking deserts. Deserts haven't grown and grown. They've been shrinking. So anyway, so we're going on to another technology. Now we're getting into the fourth law here. This is called the Sabre engine, synergistic air-breathing rocket engine. Okay, there's a whole history to this. It's, there's a basic idea. Let's start with that first, I guess. The idea here is that you're going to have a rocket engine that can go up to Mach 5 using air instead of having to carry its own oxygen. The oxygen is very heavy. It's like hydrogen. And if you're ever going to develop single-stage orbit vehicles, you need to figure out a way. If you're going to use chemical combustion, you can figure out a way that you can get the oxygen out of the air instead of having to carry your oxygen with you. So the idea here is that they have developed a cooler which can take this incoming air, which is around Mach 5, it's like 1,000 degrees plus Celsius, and bring it down to like negative 100 and some degrees in 20th of a second. And then it gets sucked into a compressor here, which basically turns it into the equivalent of liquid oxygen to burn with the hydrogen out of the rocket engine. So that's the main. There's also some ramjet burning here, but the main thrust is coming from the rocket engine. Now, this was developed by mainly three guys who had worked on something in the 1980s called the Hopeful Project, and they're British. And their project was canceled, but it wasn't just canceled. Their design for their engines that they were going to use them was classified, and they can't even talk about it. So they had to come up with a new technique. And there's a test facility being built in Colorado right now. But it's a British company, and a lot of the development of this had to do with Joint European Tourist, which is a fusion process. Alan Bond, who's one of the main developers of it, he worked at the Joint European Tourist, and he used their modeling capability to model how to cool it. This is a big problem because whenever you try to cool air, what do you do? Water. You use ice. And they solve that problem. The United States Air Force, everybody in the United States. And anyway, I'm mentioning this because the same problem that we have here, the people in have the same problem. Hooked up in the monetary system. Here's the example of the single-stage orbit vehicle they're trying to build. You see here, there's hardly any oxygen that they have to carry. Oxygen, blue, and all red. So needless to say, the U.S. Air Force, NASA, everybody's interested in that. China's interested in this kind of thing too. The alternative to that is something called the combined cycle engine, which NASA put out a contract to develop. Kind of what this is that a combination scramjet and regular turbojet. And I don't know how that's going to work out, but that's another possible way that you can build a space plane ground.
Where's this from?
Well, this is NASA. They led a contract recently to Aerojet General Rocketdyne. Rocketdyne anyway, this is another area that's being researched. That's more vague. You still have to have a rocket. So once you get to adding all these different engines, you're going to have a ramjet, turbojet. Plus, once you get to orbit, you got to have a rocket. So you've got to start. Well, a turbojet uses a compressor to compress the air, make it like oxygen. So the oxygen and whatever you burn it, with the mix and the proper mix to it. But the thing about the turbojet, you can take off from square zero. Okay? Whereas ramjet, you got to at least be going something along. I don't know how many miles an hour, but ramjet is a supersonic combustion ramjet. The air is combusting at supersonic speed inside the engine. So you got up to around Mach 10 and that's missile flight. Anyway, this is a little bit more difficult, but the Chinese are working on this. But it's one of those areas where if you have credit, that's it, build it, see what happens. I don't know. I think the other one's probably going to work out better, but you never know if you actually do it. And beyond that, we have something we can start working on immediately. So the engineers who developed the superconducting maglev rail, which is over here, which is in Pent. So this is the rail line which they're going to extend to Nagoya, and the whole world record, 92 rail, and it is best designed as just a repulsion technology as opposed to technology that's used to design an airport or it's attractive. Speed was over 600 kilometers per hour. Yeah, well, it looks the same way on both ends. Repulsion. Got superconducting magnets. Here, I got a couple magnets here. Okay, so here, these are just magnets you got as part of this. Not pushing together. How hard pushing the together. Anyway, it's an amazing thing which figure out how to use it. It's an complicated thing. I know the rest. But anyway, going back to this. So this is the generation 2 version. But the idea is you have a linear accelerating motor, and you have impulsive magnets which meant to the projectile. This one would have people in it, but the first versions wouldn't have people in it because
That isn't projecting?
yeah, that would have people in it, right?
Huh.
This is a long distance where the acceleration is taking place over a long period of time. The earlier versions would use a shorter tube up a mountain, which would put whatever you're shipping up to 30 G's of acceleration. No, this is called Star Tram. That's the whole James Powell, North Mays, Star Television. They're the people who developed that technology of the Japanese tobacco. But also, of course, the Chinese are also interested in it's a similar technology. It's all basically the same technology. You can do this for rail as well. You can close the railroad at the tube, put it underground or whatever. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons that it's going to take till 2027. Okay, one of the reasons it's going to take until 2027 to get the first route going is because 50% of it is underground. It's a mountain. And it's mountainous, and they got to go through, going straight through the mountain. It's got to be very straight. So they're starting operation.
So that's the other picture. Those lines, the other
Which one?
this is that.
Those are cables?
Those are cables. Okay,
Right.
And that's going through a tube. Is that what that
Yeah,
is?
this is the tube up here, right?
Oh,
Right.
I
And you have to have a special system to prevent air from going down the tube. With an evacuated tube, or nearly evacuated tube. And, it's like a rifle pistol. Like a cannon, but electromagnetic cannon. A rail gun. But anyway, you can do the same thing for a railroad. Anyway, so that was one of the first articles we ever had in TV Mag. New York to Los Angeles, 40 minutes. Okay, now. Okay, so talk to you about the National Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor here, which has been built in France and 37 countries involved, including South. Declared that they're over halfway there. Been working on it a long time. But this is something that's ongoing, and it's a huge international project. The good thing is that everybody's sharing their ideas, but it's not the only fusion thing out there. There's about a dozen companies that are involved in all kinds of other approaches on a smaller scale. Come up with workable fusion devices. Now, Joel, a few months back, he talked to the people over at the Princeton satellite system. They're building a fusion rocket, which could send people to Mars, much started this time than anybody is currently talking about. I'll refer you to this class. This is a good class. You actually talk to that's one thing. That's a grouping out of Princeton. Princeton knows that it has a big plasma physics laboratory, which everything's been shut down. Well, other thing on the side. We'll do little experiments. There's a Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin Comfort. They go. So they're looking at a small fusion reactor that could replace a 100 megawatt turbine engine, like on a destroyer or on an airplane, or similar kinds of things. And because it's so small, the people have been working on, their idea is they can build it, machine test it, build it in a year, test it, and build the next machine in the next year, test it. So they have a very short cycle on the verge. The International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor Research is going to be a project. So basically building something all in the order of what it would replace a gigawatt nuclear plant today, right? So they're working on that scale. Well, the other people are working on other smaller scales. This is another company, Helion. This is our friends down here, the astronaut Zhang Diaz. He's got a company down by Johnson Space Center. He's been over there working on that. There are many different designs of what's called electric propulsion. This is a gas here. But to ionize the gas, accelerate particles of the gas up to something approaching the speed of light, you get a lot more bang for your buck doing that than burning. So you get more more bang for the buck. Anyway, this is one design, but there are over 100 satellites in orbit right now that are using various kinds of electric propulsion. This particular design is very important because, number one, it was based on, they actually got an MIT fusion device down here and worked with that and used that to develop the technology so that they can vary the amount of trust that they get. Their systems are not so easily controlled. So anyway, this is another area that's being developed. This is something, this company Zipline developed a system for using drones to deliver medical supplies to remote areas in Tanzania. Blood or vaccines or medicine. These little craft can fly 50 times a day, drop parachute back. Oak Ridge National Laboratory working on wireless charging for electric vehicles, battery products, charge. The current system is 90% efficient, 3 times the rate of the user. So they're working on it.
Charge the car battery?
Yeah, charge the car battery without plugging it in. Like my phone, I charge my phone wirelessly every night. Yeah, they're building roads. And there's another company that. Right, on the right. Yeah, there's another company that's got a similar kind of thing like that. So, anyway, the point about all of this is not all the particulars, but to show you that if you got a credit system, all the stuff that we develop, you need to get useful. But once you have credit available, there's no limit to what you can do. You don't have to have a war. That's pretty much what you have to do. You have a war or space race or something like that, but you don't have to. It doesn't have to be. It's not natural. It's natural for people to work together, figure things out, and solve problems, make things better. Anyway, so that's all I have to slide. Oh. If anybody has any questions, I don't have to. talking about budget cuts. Impressive. Like $3 billion. Right. And Macron wrote a letter to President Trump, and he said, well, we'll see what we can do about it. We talk about it. Right, it's nothing. It's nothing. But it's nothing to spend a few trillion to bail out JP Morgan. No, it's nothing. One person. But the point is that you're dealing with people who are, their purpose is oppressive. That's their whole purpose. Their purpose is to oppress people. Okay. Yeah. Why don't you say something over here, Craig? I can't hear you on the internet. Just come over here. Come up here.
I've been with LaRouche for 43 years, and a lot of presentations, it echoes a set of ideas that I was working on a class for, I was unable to present it. So I just want to take 2 minutes and summarize the purpose of that class, which kind of underpins the whole thing of what you're saying. There was a credit system under Lincoln based on the greenbacks. It was a giant fight. Henry Carey, who was an economist for Lincoln and his allies, created the greenbacks. Carey dies in 1879. So between 1865, we had a credit system in the United States. In 1879, the year that Carey died, the U.S. was put back on the British gold standard and taken off the credit system. There was already many operations to crush financiers who were patriotic, pro-greenback people. I know this person is Jay, but it's not Jay from Logan, I don't remember the name. But Jay Cook, correct. Jay Cook was basically bumped out of commission in 1873. But the giant battle in the 1870s, which because of the corruption, the ignorance of General Grant and the corruption of his Treasury Secretary and many other factors, he ended up in a roller coaster economy that induced terrible class wars starting in the 1870s and 80s. He ended up with the predominance over capital that he discussed of J.P. Morgan, the Rockefellers, and others. So when there might emerge industrialists, they were strangled in their cradle. There were other credit systems, for example, in Germany under Bismarck, that did cultivate certain positive developments in Germany, some others in France. But we lost our credit system with the assassination of McKinley, and there's a very strange irony, which I haven't been able to figure out, is that we call these Lincoln Republicans who were big pro-gold people because they thought that was what it meant to be conservative businessmen. But after McKinley was assassinated in 1901, we became a satrapy of the British Empire monetary system, totally Federal Reserve, 1915, similarly. So there was a giant paradigm shift that occurred in America, which you see the Wright brothers, you see Henry Ford, you see all these people. They're an expression of still that Lincoln paradigm, which existed until World War I, but really hasn't existed since then. And what we're doing now is we are restoring the Lincoln paradigm. That's not to say that Roosevelt didn't do good things or John F. Kennedy didn't do good things. But when they tried to restore an actual credit system, they only could put up Roosevelt Construction Finance Corporation, had already given classes on that. They put up things that were temporary things that functioned as a credit system, but were not a fundamental underpinning of the economy. When you create this credit system, you create a fundamental change in morality and ethics of the whole young population. And that's what you see in China today, and that's what we have to restore in that.
Thank you, Craig. Anything else?
Yes.
Somebody asked a question. I didn't hear.
Kind of often setting up the credit.
He was trying to set up.
Well, it's not. Well, what happened was Tesla. He had an agreement with Westinghouse. The Westinghouse would pay him such and such amount for, I don't know what the exact details were, but Westinghouse was supposed to pay Tesla some amount for 100,000 kilowatt, something like that. I don't know the exact details, but Westinghouse got in a pinch that we were discussing, and no, Tesla just tore up the agreement. Because they were friends. Yeah, well, he wasn't deliberately trying to die, but he alone in a hotel room. But he was trying to help his friend. His friend was in a rough situation. Well, yeah, he figured he could. And he did get some money from for some experiments to build a radio tower, basically, from J.P. Morgan, but he tried to expand it to Morgan degree. Anyway, J.P. Morgan put a blog on him.
I just want to find out why Tesla got him on.
Well, he shouldn't have, but he was a little bit weird. A lot of people we're talking about are weird. They're a little weird, but yeah, a little weird. Yeah, some people are a little weird.
I know. You're still on video here. Okay, all right.